I have a theory. You want to hear my theory? This is a dating theory that I just came up with. So, if you're an interesting woman, I don't care how attractive you are, but let's say you're an interesting woman. And when I say interesting, I mean like ambitious, smart, funny maybe, okay? You probably have pretty high standards as to like the kind of person that you would get along with. Not necessarily even in dating, in terms of friends, just in general. It is hard to find a person that will keep you entertained because there's a lot going on in your mind. You're not a simple person, you're sophisticated in that way.
Okay, so I really wanted to let her keep talking, but unfortunately I have to butt in already. So no, it's not because you're sophisticated or hard to entertain. It's because you're being blitzed by social media all day, every day. Your attention span has gone to zero, essentially. It's hard to stimulate you now. And you want things that are always a little bit out of reach. And because everybody lies on social media nonstop, what you perceive to be normal is quite, in fact, the most difficult thing to achieve in reality. So that's probably why. So let's just start there.
And when I think of dating, I think of it as almost like entertainment.
Okay, well, that's your first mistake, isn't it? It's not supposed to be. I know a lot of you girls see it this way, obviously, and it has to be fun, but a lot of you girls don't really need men anymore, so men are essentially playthings now. So yes, you're 100% right. You and many women now see dating as entertainment. Genuinely, you see it this way.
You want to find someone that'll keep you entertained. You want someone that'll keep the plot going. You want...
So this also speaks to what I tell you guys all the time. The game never ends. The plot. Okay, so what does plot mean? Well, plot means game, obviously story. Okay, so story, aka fantasy. What do I tell you guys all the time about maintaining the fantasy? So first you got to create it, then you got to maintain it, right? This is the nature of dating now, and it's always been this way, more or less. So this is not a new concept. The issue is that before, survival conditions made it much easier to stay in this state. Because we no longer live in a survival condition, you must now do this, and this is absolutely a mandatory requirement if you want to have a long-term relationship as a man and keep your woman satisfied. Not just for her to stick with you out of pity reasons, but to stay with you because she genuinely wants to. Those are two very different things.
Someone that, like, whenever you spend time with them, you don't know what's going to happen next.
Unpredictability. What do I keep telling you guys to do? Okay, you text her every single week on the same day. Good morning every time. Good night every time. Okay, there's nothing spontaneous about that. Send her a text on Wednesday for a couple weeks, then don't text her until Friday. This is why I tell you guys these things.
And so if you are that category of woman...
If you are that category of woman, so most women, except for the few special snowflakes that are going to come in the comments and say, I'm not like that, 80%.
You're going to try to find a guy who always keeps you guessing. So whether that means he's super smart and interesting, or that means he's a total and doesn't actually like you and adds a lot of mystery and entertainment to your life, you will choose one of those two guys. Now,
well, you know what? She's actually right about this. Unfortunately, yes. It's very easy now. If you're the guy that has, so both of these guys have a lot of optionality. I'm just going to be honest. So both guys in these scenarios have plenty of options. It's just that one actually likes the girl and does these things because he has to, versus the other does it because it's fun and entertainment for him as well. But when he does it, it's bad, of course. But when you do it, it's okay. Naturally, though, when he does it, he doesn't have a long-term goal. Where the other guy, he might. He's doing it because he has to, okay? So there is two different guys here. I agree with her, shockingly.
the thing is that there aren't that many guys in the first category.
Also agree with this. Wow. Maybe her theory is not even half bad.
That are interesting, funny, smart, ambitious. Most of the nice guys, at least, can be a little predictable and a little bit boring. And so you end up going for category 2 guys because at least they keep you entertained.
So weirdly, she's saying it in a girl way, but she's telling you guys the actual truth. Surprisingly, category 2, so the manipulative, whatever type of guy, right? The bad guy is still going to be more desirable than the nice guy. Because at least he's trying to play the game. The nice guy is copped out completely. So this is what I tell you guys all the time, and she's confirming it. And I don't know how clear it needs to be, So I'll say it again, right? Being the nice guy is not interesting. It's not a cool strategy. It doesn't contribute to anything. It's just you sitting there coping further, trying to pretend like you're a nice guy and you're a good person, virtue signaling to yourself, and then getting mad when girls don't want you and blaming them, saying, "Oh, they're somehow flawed." It's simply not the case. You're just lazy, and you think that being innocent is a virtue and doing nothing evil is a virtue. It's not. It's absolutely not the case.
And in other ways. Am I right with this theory? I totally think I've just uncovered something super crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I guess she did figure out something. She's definitely onto it a little bit, but yeah, I mean, she just admitted it completely to you guys. She, as a girl, understands, and all girls know this. Yes, they want that ultimate guy that can do all those things, but second place is the guy who's faking it until he makes it, because at least he has a chance of getting there. The nice guys are never going to make it there, ever, because everybody knows nice guys get abused. Now, you could be a good person and still not be a nice guy, okay? Being a nice guy means you do things to please other people, and your main objective is to please other people because you're too weak to do what you need to do and have standards. So you will go with the flock instead of doing what you actually want to do. Okay? That's what it basically means.
I feel like not enough people warn you that when you start making the right choice in dating, start going for emotionally available men that are genuinely interested in you and make that very clear from the get-go, it gets a little bit more boring. Dating gets a little bit more boring because it's no longer up, down, will they, won't they, this like chemical, like you're getting rewarded one second and you're not the next. You're getting consistent, predictable behavior, and that to the brain is not exciting. Otherwise, drugs wouldn't be exciting to people, It's very predictable, smooth sailing, and stable. And while that's great in the long term because you don't go crazy, it also makes you realize that, I'm not gonna have these quick dopamine hits in a kind of toxic way, but that's the reality. If you want to continue dating high school level emotional maturity men, then go for it. Keep going for those men that don't choose you, that text you every 5 days. Or you can go for the guy who will respond to you as soon as he sees his message. It's not it might be less exciting, but it's in the long term, it protects your heart.
Okay, so I think we've heard enough. This girl really thinks she did something, but all she did was expose her nature to us. Girls obviously love in a dualistic way. With the introduction of social media, they can't hide any longer. Women are quite blatantly attracted to guys who are more valuable than they are. When we're talking about value, we're talking about perceived value. Perceived value is quite simple. You meet up with somebody, you exchange info, and then they reach out to you later because they want to talk to you. They want to talk to you because they likely value you in some way. Whether it's for entertainment or education, it does not matter. They're reaching out to you because they want you in their life in some way. When it comes to girls, they're only truly attracted to men when they seek them out and seek their approval. Basically, when they're trying to put themselves in his orbit. This is primarily because they're feminine and their natural nature is to be submissive. They are taught to be logical because it gives them control and power. They then cope and train themselves to enjoy said power out of fear of being out of control, even though deep down, all they really want is to be out of control. You see how hard it is to make sense of all of this? This concept right here is the core reason why girls don't like nice guys. Nice guys essentially set themselves up to be submissive to a woman. Let's break it down simply. When you're a nice guy, what you'll do is you'll declare your intent, what you feel, and what you want right away. The main reason you do this is because you want that validation and security. You're telling her everything up front as a means of buying her affection, presenting yourself as non-manipulative. In reality, all this is cheap trickery and laziness. You're no different than Peter Pan at this point. You're trying to force an idealistic fantasy into reality. What you're not doing is addressing the obvious human component. What is cheap and easy to get is not valuable. From the perspective of women, you can't blame them for seeing the world this way. Anything of high value is extremely hard to access. There's a reason why diamonds and jewelry are locked in boxes. If they left it out in the open, eventually someone would steal it because it's so high value. The whole point I'm trying to make is that there's a high barrier to entry. When you as a guy make yourself so easily accessible, all it shows is that you really don't have any better options. If you don't have any better options, it also means that you're really not in high demand. If you're not in high demand, are you truly that valuable? valuable. Men that are genuinely valuable value their time. Men that are truly valuable do not need to rely on any marketing gimmicks. A great example of this concept is a company like Lamborghini. Lamborghini never runs television advertisements. The main reason, of course, is because they know their product is so good that it doesn't need to be advertised in the traditional sense. They don't need every person in the world to buy their product. As a man, you should focus on exuding the exact same energy. Obviously, you shouldn't finesse it because girls can see through that too. When you fake your value by withholding, you're no different than a snake oil salesman. Let's bring it back full circle. When a woman chooses you because you're easy to control, she's doing so out of convenience. She's with you because she doesn't want to be alone, not because she truly loves you. When you're the exciting guy, she chases you because she genuinely wants to be with you. She doesn't care about the inconvenience because deep down, you're worth it to her. If you want to be a man and you want to be in full control of your life, always choose the second option.
This is an unpopular opinion, but I just have to get this off my chest. Nice guys finish last is a myth. And I'm talking to grown adults here, okay?
Yeah, there's always a caveat. I'm talking to grown adults, not kids. So what would you define as a kid? Anyone that acts like one. Okay, is there age range or whatever? No, some people are 40 and they're still children.
You're not grown, keep scrolling. I'm gonna hold your hand when I say this. In the long run, nice guys are the ones who know how to maintain long-term relationships.
They were always those ones because they don't want to get anyone else. They're a one and done type, okay? They're naive by nature, right? And that's fine, but this is how they play. So, yes, what you're saying is true. Is that something you want, though, long term? Let's see.
Why? They understand the value of compromise,
Submitting to you.
communication, and commitment.
So, communication meaning listening to your feelings about stuff, which most often is going to be irrational. Commitment meaning not looking at anybody else, ever. So basically turning off the male instinct.
First of all, not every woman goes for looks. There's a lot of women and women that are in happy relationships with guys who are 2 or 3 looks-wise, but I promise you their personality is a freaking 10.
Yeah, and they dominate those guys. A lot of times those guys are in blissful ignorance. Sometimes it works out and those guys just stay golden retrievers. But as we see all the time in a lot of those scenarios, girls in those types of relationships abuse the guys. Okay, it's almost like they can't help themselves. It leads to a cycle of dominance. They become minorly disrespectful. The guy starts to recluse a bit, and the cycle continues. So it's not the most ideal scenario.
And these guys treat these girls like they're queens, okay? They may be a 2 looks-wise, 2, 3 looks-wise, but their personality is a 10 because they understand that empathy, trust, and kindness are the foundation of their relationship.
No, most of the time it's because they know deep down that they can't do better, or at least that's what they believe, right? They believe that this is the only person they can ever get of that quality, right? They've idealized this person. So a lot of times these guys get into a relationship with these women, and because they idealize them, it's very hard for them to justify standing their ground, right? So even when they try to put up a boundary, it's always in such a soft way. In these scenarios, the girl runs the relationship, and now your whole relationship is hinging on an emotional individual. If that individual is not super emotional, doesn't love chaos all the time, maybe you'll sneak by. But if they're a high chaos individual and push boundaries, you're screwed long term. And I just don't think that's a good way to run your life. So I would never recommend this path.
And again, this is why I said I'm talking to grown adults. Because if you are a man and you are currently dating a woman who isn't emotionally healed, who has some emotional unavailability, she is not going to pick you. You will not finish last. Nice guys finish.
It's always if this, if that, if this, if that, right? With these types of women, right? They talk about a very minority situation, right? They talk about something that does exist, but it's not recommended or the ideal case. Far from it, actually, right? And they try to pretend that this is the way to do it. Just because this works out sometimes doesn't mean it's the ideal way to do it. People cope all the time. Okay, coping is not a good long-term strategy just because it works sometimes. Okay, sometimes it works out. People in the past used to cope 50 years through a relationship. People now won't do it. They're not maybe as strong. Maybe the society's changed, whatever it may be, right? We can talk about that all day. The point is, cope is the cornerstone of most relationships, okay? And this particular arrangement or configuration, loadout, whatever you want to call it, is most definitely a cope situation. Okay, so do you want to build it on cope or not? Guys don't want to be submissive to women. They do it because they feel they have to. Okay, but it's not a state they prefer to be in. They do it because they're taught that this is the right way to do things. And girls love kindness, trust, blah, 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 overwhelming commitment, all of these things. And a lot of times girls will take advantage of a guy like this, or they'll take a guy like this because they need to, because they don't have a better choice. Unfortunate truth. Let's move on.
Strong because they build a relationship on trust and respect. They don't play games. They don't manipulate. They are straightforward and genuine. And let me tell you something. A grown woman who has done the work to heal understands and knows the value of kindness.
How much you want to bet she's talking about herself? How much do you want to bet? She's healed, she's grown, and she knows the value of kindness now, not before, okay? We're going to excuse all of the past mistakes because that was unhealed version of me. I didn't value kindness, but now I value kindness, okay? Now, finally, I've come into that era of my life, most likely late 20s, maybe 30s. Now I value it. Before I didn't, but that's because I was unhealed. Now I finally healed myself, and now I value it. This is most likely what's going on here.